How do you stay in control of your sales calls throughout the call? Now, in this video, I want to help you to not lose control. And the easiest way I can explain what losing control looks like is when your prospect is just talking, when there is no direction and you don't feel like you're moving forward. And you're trying to regain control, you think, well, let me just tell the prospect everything about my program and then let me tell them the price. There's no structure. Now, this video is not going to be about how you deliver a sales call from start to finish, but there's 5 key areas that's going to help you to stay in control. Now, when you learn how to stay in control, you will lead the call. When you lead the call, you are in control. When you are being led on a call, you will lose control. And at the end of the call, you'll wonder why your prospect says no. So the first thing you need to do is you must frame the call. You join your prospect on the call. And if you've got 45 minutes to 60 minutes, I would say that straight from the bat. John, great. I'm really looking forward to helping you today. We've got 60 minutes. Or if you've got a call straight afterwards, let them know. So it's very, very clear. And then you frame the call. Now, great. On our call today, what I want to do is understand a little bit more about where you are right now. I want to learn where you would like to get to in the next 3 to 6 months. And then if I feel I can help you, I'll show you what that looks like. Does that sound good? Now, when you frame the call, rather than this, hey John, great to meet you. Where are you from? Great. You got kids? What are you doing at the weekend? And then it goes off on this tangent and then they waffle. Now, it's okay to just open up with, great, nice to meet you. Where are you from? And they'll say, oh, so-and-so. Great. So what I want to do on today's call, then you go straight into the frame. Whereas most people, when they're on calls, they talk a little bit of waffle and then they go, great. What do you want to achieve? And then it leads down a path where they just talk. Well, I went on holiday last year and I was like this. Great. What I want to understand. And then you get very clear. You see my language changes, my tonality changes, and I'm going into a control place. The second thing is you must realign where there's any degree of waffle. Now, you may feel, I don't like to cut people off, but you have to cut people off. If you say, what is it you want to achieve? And they say, well, I want to lose some weight. You see, when I was 19, and then you go off on this big tangent, you've got 60 minutes. You have to control the call. If you allow your prospect 6 or 7 minutes to talk waffle, and then you ask them another question, you get 6 to 7 minutes, you're 15 to 20 minutes into unnecessary waffle. And with that, you can just say, great, thanks for being so open. But earlier you discussed this. I'd like to dive into that if we can. Now, what you're doing is you say, great, thank you for being so open with me. But earlier you said this. I'd like to take a look at that. Because what you're doing is on the call, you have to control what you want to talk about. It's not about allowing them to talk about what they want to talk about. You need a structure. Now, there are plenty of videos on this channel or in these episodes that actually talk about delivering sales calls, how to handle all the different objections and actually the structure of the call. But if you're not framing the call, you're not in control. If you're allowing waffle, then the call is just lacking of any structure. Now, the third thing is you must tie down your prospect. Not literally, but you must, whenever they say anything. For example, so we've just been talking about time. You've said to me that at work, you have 30 to 40 minutes every day. You're not using that time at the moment to exercise, but would I be right in saying that from what you've said, there are 3 times a week that's realistic that you could do 30 to 35 minutes in the gym? Is that correct? Yes. And if you were to start this right now, regardless of your work schedule that you've got coming up, do you believe you could commit to that 100%? Absolutely, with certainty. So this is what's called a tie down. You're basically taking the thing, you're screwing it and pulling it and making sure it's watertight. I just make a note on my pad going time. Why? Time is a reason at the end of the call for people to actually end up saying, I just need to think about it. I don't know if I'm going to have the time. But if in the call you focus on time and then say, can we be sure? Can you be certain that the 3 hours that we need to exercise, regardless of you thinking it's going to take 5 hours a week, it's just going to take 3, but 35 to 40 minute sessions, can you fit that in? They turn around and go, absolutely. Now, the great thing about the control is that you're controlling that. Yeah, well, maybe. What I'd like to understand is if there's a certainty from you, and that gives you a tie down. Now, anything you're saying on the calls, stop and get tie down. I'll talk to you in another one when I talk about objections in a second, but there are other objections that people may have in terms of partner and spouse and finances, etc. And with each one of those, you have to tie them down. We'll talk about them in a second. The fourth one is you've got to stick to a time frame. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning that if you start your call and you've got 60 minutes, then that is something you need to state to the person. If, however, you get 20 minutes into the call and it's leading off in a different direction, you can just say something subtly like this: John, we've got 20 minutes left. What I want to do is to get the most out of this for you. And whilst I fully appreciate what you've said, I'd love to discuss this, right? You control that. And you know what's funny? When you say we've got 20 minutes left, they kind of sit back a little bit because you take control. You'll notice this on the call. When you frame it, they sit up. When you take control, they sit up. When you tie down anything, they sit up. Now, the fifth one is you hit objections early on in the call. Now, this is not something that most fitness coaches are aware of. You have a conversation about where somebody wants to get to, what their goals are. Then you say, oh, wow, I know I can help them. And then you tell them everything about your coaching program. And in one of the sales trainings in this channel, you will find where I teach you about objections, each of the main key core objections and how to handle them. I'm going to stop the video just for 2 seconds because I've got a free gift for you. Now, I created a 5-part mini-series called the Online Coach Income Accelerator. And in this video series, I teach you the incredible opportunities that lie ahead for online fitness coaches today. I then talk to you about how to attract, engage, and market to your dream customers. Now, when you have these dream prospects in sight, I then teach you how to land the high-paying clients. Now, to download this, to get immediate access, all you need to do is to click the link in the bio and you'll receive immediate access as soon as you submit your details. I'll see you there. But you have to hit objections early to try and get an objectionless close. Cole Gordon talks about dealing with objections earlier on in the call. And I learned this years ago and it changed the game for me. There are 6 to 7 major objections that people will have. One of them, and they're based around core beliefs. Okay. Now I have a training based on the core beliefs and the objections, which you can watch. But the point of this is to stay in control. You literally will focus on what potential objections there may be. It may be that they're not certain that they can do this on their own. For example, they must believe that their partner and spouse is supportive of them. So for example, some of the biggest issues you're going to have with people is time, logistics, money, partner and spouse, or even belief in themselves. Now, if you wait to the end of the call when they go, oh, I'm just not sure, it means you've not handled that early on in the call. If you get to the end and they go, I just want to talk to my wife, it means you haven't handled that earlier on in the call. So for example, I talk about tie down. I may say, for example, earlier on in the call, John, so you're in a relationship, right? Yeah, I'm married. Oh, great. Awesome. Been married long? 2 or 3 years. Well, given that, do you and your wife train together? Not really. So I'm guessing you probably haven't had a conversation with your wife about you wanting to get in shape. Oh yeah, we had a conversation last night. And is she supportive? 100%. I said, this is something I really want to do. So now I do the tie down. Great. So what you're saying is, if we got to a point where this is potentially the right fit for you, you and your partner are just completely on the same page about this is something you want to do. Absolutely. Tick partner. You see, I've tied it down. I've got certainty. And with that, I've handled one of the major objections. I need to speak to my wife. Because if at the end of the call they go, I need to speak to my wife, what do you say? Do you mind if I just rewind 20 minutes? You said your wife's fully supportive of you and she wants you to do this and you agreed on it last night. So I'm just guessing. It has nothing to do with your wife. It may be something else. Do you think it may be this? Or are you happy for us to just explore outside of your wife what this may be so I can help you on this call? So that in itself is such a key way of being able to get to the end of the call. And the only real thing you should have an issue with is money. Like if you want to do the program 110%, we've got a money problem. So let's talk about money. We've got a money challenge standing in your way. So here's how to stay in control of calls. 1, you frame the call. 2, you realign if there's any waffle, bring people back to the moment. 3, you tie down your prospect and get clarity on every point that you cover. 4 is you stick to a time frame, pull people back in line with the time frame and you control the time frame. And then 5 is you hit objections early on in the call. When you do, you'll end up with a structured call. You'll end up with a call most of the time that will close out all the challenging objections, which makes most coaches fearful of sales calls because you end up into a barrage of objections. You only hit objections because you've not done a structured sales call. The reality is you shouldn't be faced with too many of them at the end of the call. Now, this is how to stay in control on a sales call. If sales is an area that you struggle with yourself, it's an area we teach inside Coaching Concierge Build, and it's the difference between you not making sales and making high ticket sales. If you want to know more, then you can click the link in the description on YouTube. Just send me a DM with the word build on Instagram and I'll show you how. But for now, click like, click subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.